My dad forbade me from going to my mom's birthday, and then my sister's boyfriend looked at me and said, "Hi, boss. My name is Nicole. I'm 32 years old and I live in a small town about 50 minutes by car from Boston. Every morning, I make myself an espresso, listen to the weather forecast, and then walk to my office, which is just over a block from my house. I'm the co-founder of a biotech startup in the health sector. It's a job that's hard to explain, especially to people who think working in an office means typing in data all day. My family never understood what I do, or maybe they were just never really interested in trying to understand. To them, I've always been the weird younger sister, the one who dressed plainly, barely wore makeup, and was always glued to her laptop or caught up in some meeting. But Claire, my older sister, is the one they're proud of. She's 3 years older than me and has always been the perfect daughter in their eyes, beautiful, elegant, soft-spoken, and charming. Even in family photos, I was just a distant shadow behind the spotlight that always shone on Claire. At Thanksgiving or Christmas, relatives would gather around her to shower her with compliments. "Claire, you look stunning in that dress. Oh Claire, your new boyfriend is a doctor. Impressive. And me?" If anyone even remembered I existed, they'd say, "Nicole? Yeah, I think she does something in biotech," as if I were just a footnote. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough and stayed behind the scenes, carrying all the weight, one day my parents would finally see me and be just as proud of me as they were of Claire. But that never happened. All the attention, all the expectations, and all the praise were always for her. And I was the distant one, the cold one, the one who didn't know how to hold a conversation. No one knew that I stayed at the office until midnight solving a crisis on a public health project worth nearly $2 million. No one asked how it felt to build a company from scratch with 3 college classmates. When someone asked me about my family, I would just draw a faint smile and say, "We haven't spoken in a while." It's nothing. Not because I was hiding anything, it's just that there was nothing else to say. We went 2 years without speaking, no messages, no calls, not even a "happy birthday." Just silence, like the connection had broken and no one cared to fix it. I used to believe that family was the place you could always come back to. But one day, on my mom's birthday, that belief shattered into pieces. It was late March. I had just successfully closed a funding round with an investment firm in New York. I planned to take 3 days off and fly out early to help my parents prepare for my mom's birthday, like I used to. Nothing extravagant, I just wanted to help, as always. When I called to let them know, it was my dad who answered. "I'm planning to arrive early. Let me know if you need me to buy or prepare anything," I told him. I still remember his voice clearly. He didn't sound angry, just strange. After a short pause, he cleared his throat and said, "Nicole, if possible, don't come home this year." I froze for a second, thinking maybe he was just worried about my workload. "Don't worry, Dad. I cleared my schedule. I really want to be there this time." His voice turned firm. "Claire is going to introduce her new boyfriend. He's a CFO, speaks well, and is clearly successful. Your work, well, it's hard to explain. If you come, there'll be comparisons, and it'll make things uncomfortable. So it's better if you don't come." My mind went blank. I felt a knot in my chest and a chill running down my spine. I gripped the phone and spoke through clenched teeth. "Are you saying I'm an embarrassment to the family? That I shouldn't show up because I'm pathetic?" But he didn't back down. On the contrary, he doubled down. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me Dad ever again." And he hung up, without hesitation, without giving me a chance to respond. My apartment suddenly became a silent place. The espresso cup in my hand had gone cold. I just stared into nothing, as if the world had split in two with one single sentence. I didn't cry, I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I understood that I was no longer part of the family I had worked so hard to hold together. I remained seated in my armchair by the window, with the early spring light coming through the white curtains, unable to warm me on the inside. My father's words echoed, sharp and final, "If you insist on coming, then don't call me Dad ever again." I looked down at my hands, my fingers were trembling. Not out of anger, but something deeper, like I had reached my breaking point. I had always believed that even if they didn't love me like they loved Claire, I was still their daughter. Turns out, I wasn't. I stood up and walked to my desk. Without hesitation, I opened my laptop and logged into my online banking. For more than 2 years, I had been sending my parents money every month to cover electricity, water, internet, and cable, around $600 monthly, not including extras. When my mom told me the refrigerator had broken or my dad's car needed repairs, they never asked if I could afford it. They just said, "Claire is having a hard time after switching jobs. If you can help, that would be great." And I helped without question, as if it were my duty. I opened the transaction history. The total showed $15,620. I felt a hollow ache in my chest, not from regret, but because even all of that hadn't been enough for them to accept me. I reviewed each of the payments: electricity, water, internet, cable. I clicked on all of them, and one by one, they were cancelled. Notifications appeared on the screen: automatic payment successfully cancelled. No alerts, no warnings, just silence. The same silence they had always treated me with. That night, I didn't sleep. I wasn't furious, but I couldn't stop replaying everything: my dad's words, how my family would rather exclude me to impress Claire's new boyfriend, someone they didn't even know. I'd been compared my entire life, but this was the first time they had rejected me so openly, as if my mere presence was a burden. My mother's birthday came quickly. I didn't call, didn't send a card, didn't post anything on social media. Not out of revenge, but because I could no longer pretend. At 5 in the afternoon, while I was sipping mint tea on my balcony, my phone vibrated. It was my mom. I looked at the screen for a few seconds and let it go dark. A message came in from her: "Nicole, why is the power out? Could you check on it?" I set the tea aside and saw another message from my dad: "There's no water or internet. Call the companies. Your mother is hysterical." I stayed silent, eyes fixed on the trees across the street. I didn't feel rage or pain, just a strange calm. They didn't ask, "Are you okay?" They didn't mention the call. They only wanted me to do what I always did: solve everything for them. Then came a message from Claire: "There's no internet. The guests are about to arrive and Mom is almost in tears." What's going on? I picked up the phone and typed: 3 weeks ago, Dad told me that if I insisted on coming, I shouldn't call him Dad anymore. I'm just doing what he asked. If I make you uncomfortable, find someone you're not ashamed of. But I didn't send it. I erased it, not because I regretted it, but because I knew that no matter what I said, they would only hear what suited them. I put the phone down and lay back, closing my eyes. My apartment was still silent: no accusations, no judgmental looks, no demands. The next day, Claire left a voicemail: "Mom hasn't stopped crying since last night. You know how important it was for my boyfriend to meet the family for the first time and everything went wrong. You're so selfish." I listened to the whole message, then turned off the phone. I hadn't been selfish for years. It was about time. I opened my work email to review the weekend's operations report. One subject line caught my eye: personnel transfer from New Jersey to Boston pending approval. I opened the attached list and skimmed through it until I stopped on one name: Liam Prescott. My heart started to race. I remembered that name because 3 days earlier, my mother had said, "Claire's boyfriend, Liam, works at a big corporation." I narrowed my eyes. The file read: current position, head of finance, New Jersey branch. Transfer to Boston headquarters. Approval, Nicole Warren, co-founder. I let out a small, sarcastic laugh. The world was very small. And I knew exactly what was about to happen. I sat still in front of the computer, feeling an emptiness in my chest, as if the last shred of hope had been ripped from me. Nearly $16,000 paid over 2 years, without a single thank you. I checked the list of payments again: $192.48 for electricity, $136.72 for water, $248.50 for internet and cable, month after month, like I was their unpaid family accountant. I remembered the last call from my mom, about a year ago, asking me at midnight, "Nicole, the bathroom pipe burst. Can you call someone? Claire is away with her boyfriend. You're the only one left." The only one left sounded like an innocent phrase, but it held the bitter truth. I wasn't loved as a daughter, I was just the solution when the ones they truly loved weren't around. And now, being told not to come because my career didn't look good enough, I finally understood. I'd been doing things for them for years without receiving affection. They only remembered me when something needed to be paid or a problem needed to be fixed. But when I needed something, there was never anyone. My phone lit up again, a message from Mom. "Nicole, I know yesterday was a bit tense, but if you could take care of the internet bill, we'd really appreciate it. Claire is trying to keep things calm with the guests." I stared at that message like a stranger. No apologies, no mention of my father's cruel rejection, just another request, as usual. I set the phone down, walked out onto the balcony, and sat in the wooden chair as the April sun went down. Boston wasn't warm yet, but the fresh air cleared my mind. I thought about Liam, Claire's new boyfriend, who would soon be reporting to me. It was ironic, my family had pushed me away from the birthday celebration to impress him, and now he was going to work directly under me. If life were a comedy, it would be the best joke. I returned to my desk and opened my email. Another subject line stood out: new hire confirmation, transfer of Liam Prescott to the Boston office. I opened his profile. Everything matched: age, experience, degrees. A flawless resume, exactly the kind Claire would admire, well-educated, stable, classy, on paper. I looked at his photo and it felt familiar. I remembered we had met at a conference about 6 months earlier. He shook my hand, calling me co-founder Warren, politely, neither of us realizing he was Claire's boyfriend. Maybe I had never cared who my sister dated. Now I had to decide whether or not to approve the transfer, but I knew I didn't need to do anything. Life had already written the perfect script. I just had to wait and see how Claire would react when she found out her boyfriend reported to the sister who embarrassed the family. The next day, Liam arrived at the office. He came into mine with a folder and looked a bit tense. When I looked up, I saw his eyes widen in shock. "Nicole?" he asked softly. I smiled calmly. "Welcome to Pacific Genomics. I'll be reviewing the financial plan for this quarter. I hope we work well together." Liam stood frozen, his face turning from red to pale. No one in my family knew I was the co-founder of this company. They had never bothered to find out. They assumed I was just another office worker. I didn't say anything else. I just slid the contract toward him. Liam took it and left in silence. I leaned back in my chair. I wasn't happy or sad, I just felt that the wheel had finally turned. And I didn't even have to say a word. The truth spoke for itself. On the morning of my mother's birthday, the Boston sky looked unusually gray. A thick fog covered the city, blurring everything, as if the world were preparing to let go of something. I poured myself a strong black coffee, sat by the window, and looked out at the empty courtyard. I wasn't planning anything, no messages, no calls, no posts. I just wanted everything to unfold without me. At 9 a.m., my phone vibrated. First message from Mom: "Sweetheart, I think the power is out. Could you check on it? It's an important day." I placed the phone face down on the table. The same sweet, affectionate voice, as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't told me I was an embarrassment to the family. 15 minutes later, another message, this time from Dad: "Still no power. No water either. Is there some issue with the payments? Call the company immediately." Cold. Commanding. No concern for me, no mention that they had excluded me. Just an order, as if I were still their unpaid logistics coordinator. I sighed. In 2 years, I had never once been late on the payments for electricity, water, internet, or cable. I had cancelled everything the same night my dad told me to stop calling him Dad because I wasn't easy to introduce. And on the very day Claire was showing off her boyfriend, the house had no power, no water, and no internet, just as I had expected. By 11 a.m., the messages were piling up. Mom, Nicole, please, I'm begging you. The guests are arriving. Help us just this once. Dad, there's no power to cook. Where are you? Take care of this now. Claire, seriously, Nicole. Today is a special day. Mom is about to cry. We don't have internet. I'm going crazy. Can you stop being selfish? I leaned back in my chair. My coffee had gone cold. Those texts didn't bring me pleasure or revenge, just emptiness. A strange calm. Then the phone vibrated again. A video call from my Aunt Sharon, the only one in the family who still sent me messages on special occasions, even if I hardly ever replied. I hesitated, but I answered. Her old-fashioned kitchen appeared on screen. Lit only by the glow of her phone, her face looked tired, her eyes slightly red. Nicole, she said softly, your mom is very upset. It's all dark in the house, everyone's running around, and no one knows what to do. I stayed silent, simply watching her. She continued, without blaming or defending anyone. What happened? You've never missed your mom's birthday. I'm sure you have your reasons, but please, say something. I took a deep breath and kept my voice steady. Dad said I embarrassed the family and that if I insisted on coming, I shouldn't call him Dad. What am I supposed to do with that? Aunt Sharon froze. Her expression changed instantly. In the background, voices could be heard, my mother shouting, she's probably just being dramatic. No one could be so cruel as to do this. Then another, sharper voice, Claire, Liam is about to arrive. Someone call the power company. I can't believe she's doing this to us today. I smiled bitterly. Aunt Sharon heard everything. She didn't defend me or anyone else. She just looked at me with understanding. Then suddenly, the camera shifted and another face appeared, Liam, wearing the same pristine suit from his resume photo. He looked at the screen and, almost without thinking, said, Nicole? Silence fell. He kept staring and added, you're Nicole Warren, the one who runs Pacific Genomics. I nodded, looking directly at him. There was a long pause. Then Liam turned to everyone present and said, she is my direct superior, the one who approved my transfer to Boston. A hush fell over the entire room. Claire stood with her mouth open. My parents were frozen. No one said a word. In a calm tone, I said only, I hope your presentation goes well today. And I ended the video call. Afterward, I set my phone aside. Outside, the afternoon continued gray, the light barely filtering through the clouds. Everything was so quiet it barely felt real, just me and a strange sense of relief, as if the truth had finally come out on its own. I didn't need to expose anyone, just stay silent and let the facts speak. Liam had said it clearly, I was the co-founder, the boss that my family had believed was just some office worker. That kitchen in my house had become a stage where all the masks fell off at once, and no one could stop it. I imagined the scene as if watching a recording, my mother stunned, nearly dropping the cake tray, my father red with rage, gripping the table, the aunts and cousins, who came only to eat and gossip, sitting in silence, not knowing what to say. And Aunt Sharon, still on the call, watching everything unfold, not intervening, but with a look that now seemed full of respect. She didn't justify or defend anyone. She just gave me a slight nod before hanging up. That night, I received the first message from Claire, long, confused, a mix of anger and desperation. You knew everything, didn't you? You let it happen in front of everyone. Mom's been crying all day. Liam doesn't know what to do. Don't you think that was cruel, Nicole? I saw the notification but didn't open it right away. I went to the kitchen, made a ginger tea, and sat on the couch, letting the steam soothe the tension in my throat. I wasn't happy, nor did I feel guilty. After about 10 minutes, I replied with just a few lines. You say I was cruel. I was at home. I didn't start the video call. I didn't tell Liam I'm his boss. I didn't do anything. And if a single truth was enough to ruin the party, maybe that party never had solid foundations to begin with. I sent it. I wasn't expecting a response. Half an hour later, my mom wrote. I never thought you'd choose this way to get revenge on the family. I closed my eyes and leaned back. Revenge, that's what they thought this was. I remembered that they had excluded me from a family celebration for not being good enough to show off. I remembered paying thousands of dollars in silence, without anyone asking if I was okay. And still, I was the one they called resentful. Around 10 o'clock that night, I received an email from Liam. Nicole, I'm sorry. I didn't know before. I truly admire your work and the way you stayed silent today. I've never felt more ashamed, but not because of you. I read it and calmly replied. Liam, there's no need to apologize. Everyone is responsible for how they choose to see others. And don't worry, I don't mix family matters with work. But now I hope you understand something. Sometimes, silence is our greatest strength. I hit send, turned off my screen, and placed the phone face down. The next day, I would go to the office as usual, review reports, and prepare meetings. The world would keep turning, but now there was a difference. From that day on, those who had ignored me all my life finally knew who I was, and without ever raising my voice, I had left them speechless. The next morning, when I arrived at my office, sunlight filtered through the windows, painting everything with a golden hue. The atmosphere was calm, as if the universe were giving me a few minutes to breathe before the daily rush. I sat down, turned on my computer, and opened my email. In my priority inbox, there was an unread message. Sender, Liam Prescott. I clicked. Subject, sorry if goodbye. Nicole. I don't know where to begin, but after what happened last night, I couldn't sleep. I'd been thinking that maybe all of it shouldn't have happened in front of everyone. But at the same time, I feel a strange sense of clarity, especially about you. I'm not ashamed that you're Claire's sister. I'm ashamed I didn't see who she really was, sooner. I can't stay in a relationship where basic respect is missing. As of today, I'm ending things with Claire. Thank you for staying silent yesterday. And thank you for leading with calm, strength, and fairness. Liam. I read it twice and leaned back in my chair. I didn't feel joy that Claire had lost her boyfriend. I just felt that, for the first time, someone from the outside could see what I had endured for years, something others said I exaggerated or put up with because I was cold. I didn't reply. There was no need. About 2 hours later, while reviewing a financial report, my phone lit up. A message from Claire. Nicole, don't leave me on scene. I know you're busy, but please, could you talk to Liam for me? He's misunderstanding everything. I looked at it with a blank expression. I didn't respond right away. 5 minutes later, another message came. You're his boss. You have influence. If you say something, he'll reconsider. I walked over to the window and looked down at the street, full of people. There had been a time when I would have given anything for a message from Claire, one word of encouragement when I was struggling. It never came. And now, because her relationship had fallen apart, she was coming to me. Not to apologize, but to fix it. I went back to my desk and typed. Liam didn't leave because of something I said. He left because of who you are. And maybe, for the first time, he saw it clearly. Claire didn't respond immediately. But about an hour later, another message arrived. You're right. But I don't want to lose him. I'm not going to change this time. Please, just once. I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because there was no point in explaining further. That night, I left the office under the cool spring breeze and a sky streaked orange by the setting sun. I walked to the parking lot without hurry. Maybe, for the first time in years, I felt light. I hadn't sought revenge, I had simply let my truth surface and let things unfold. Claire had caused her own downfall. And Liam, once dazzled by the facade of a perfect family, had finally discovered the reality. That night, I played a music playlist that used to make me feel invisible during my early days at the startup. But this time, the melody sounded like a gentle affirmation. I had stepped out of the shadows without shouting, simply standing firm. And that was what my family never saw coming, that I no longer needed validation. I only needed to be myself and live what I truly deserved. About a week after everything had settled down, on a Sunday when I decided not to touch my laptop, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I almost ignored it, but something pushed me to look through the peephole. There they were, my parents, standing at the doorstep. I froze for a few seconds, taking in the scene. My mom held a small bag, looking tired. My dad had his arms crossed, his expression less harsh than during our last call, but still cold. I opened the door without saying a word. "Hi, sweetheart," my mom said hoarsely, as if returning from a long journey. "Hi, can we come in to talk for a moment?" I let them in. No hugs, no affectionate greetings, just a heavy silence from the entrance to the living room. I offered them water, placed 2 glasses in front of them, and sat in the opposite chair. My mother looked around the apartment, simple, tidy, with no trace of them. My father spoke first. "About your mother's birthday." I said things I shouldn't have said. I stayed silent. He looked at me and continued, "Maybe we've been a little harsh with you. Claire is a mess since the breakup, and your mom hasn't stopped crying. So, we wanted to sit down and talk. As a family." I didn't say anything, just nodded slightly. I knew that was just the introduction before they got to what they'd really come for. As expected, my mother stepped in. "Well, we have a proposal." She pulled out a printed sheet from the bag and placed it on the table. "We've been thinking. You're stable now. Your job is going really well. If possible, we'd like you to help us with about $2,000 a month. Just enough to cover living expenses, insurance, and a bit for retirement." I looked at her. $2,000 a month? My dad jumped in, as if afraid I'd misunderstood. No, it's not much for someone in your position. We're family, Nicole." I sat up straighter. "And Claire?" I asked. My mom hesitated. "She's not doing well after the breakup. She's down. Work isn't going great. We can't pressure her." I let out a soft laugh, not out of anger, just from the familiarity of it all. Claire was always untouchable. I was always the one who had to bear everything. I looked at them. "If Claire agrees to contribute half, $1,000 a month, I'll cover the other half. Otherwise, I want a legal contract specifying clearly that when you're gone, all assets, including the house, will go to me." A heavy silence filled the room. My father frowned, his face reddening. "You're setting conditions on your own parents?" I looked at him without blinking. "These aren't conditions. They're principles. I already spent almost $16,000 on you over the last 2 years, without ever hearing a thank you. If you want me to keep helping you, things have to be clear." My mother stood up and tugged on my father's arm, her voice trembling. "Maybe we should talk about this later." But he stood up suddenly and slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses tremble. "We raised you for over 20 years, and now that we ask for a little help, you demand a contract. Unbelievable." I stayed seated, gaze steady. "Dad, I don't owe you anything. If you think raising me was some kind of investment that needs to be repaid, we can calculate it all out, but I won't keep paying in silence." He opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. My mother took his arm. "Let's go." I stood as well and walked them to the door, no hugs, no goodbyes. When I closed it, the only thing left was the breeze drifting in from the balcony. In that moment, I knew a chapter had ended, and this time, I was the one who wrote the final sentence. After that day, my parents never contacted me again. No calls, no messages, no apologies either. What they did do was complain about the scene they said I caused in my home, as if their outburst was my fault, for being the difficult daughter. But I wasn't surprised. I knew that silence well. It wasn't guilt or regret. It was the helplessness of someone who loses control and doesn't know how to speak when they no longer hold power. I went on with my life, quiet mornings with coffee, strategic meetings that ran late, signing contracts with partners who once doubted that a young woman could lead a biotechnology company. And I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped believing it was wrong to say no. To stop being the walking wallet and default caretaker just because I was capable. I understood that real love isn't measured in monthly payments and can't survive out of obligation. If affection only exists while you're footing the bills, it's not family, it's a transaction. I began cutting the invisible strings that had kept me tied to the role they assigned me. I removed the family photo from my phone's background. Stopped remembering Claire's birthday. Didn't mark the holidays on my calendar to send anything. I stopped feeling guilty reading messages loaded with manipulation. I learned to write my own ending instead of waiting for their apology. One day, during a team meeting, Liam, now officially head of finance, walked in with an investment report. He worked with dedication, professionalism, and always maintained respectful distance. We never spoke of Claire, not once, and I was grateful for that. Some topics, once made clear, are better left closed. That afternoon, as I left the office, it was drizzling. I stopped at a cafe I knew and sat by the window. On the wall hung a carved wooden sign. Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a choice. I sat there, sipping a latte, thinking about how far I'd come. There was a time I believed that if I stayed quiet enough, kind enough, responsible enough, someday they'd accept me. But if you let people get used to disrespecting you, your sacrifices turn into debts they think you owe. And your silence becomes a sentence. Today, I chose to raise my voice, not to go against my family, but to protect myself. I chose to set boundaries, not out of selfishness, but because I finally understood that my worth isn't defined by pity or by others' convenience. And if someone were to ask me, Nicole, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you? I would answer, I regret taking so long to realize I deserved better. Because true family is the one that sees you as a whole person, not as a wallet, not as a stand-in, not as the backup plan when the favored ones aren't around. I know some will find my story hard to accept. In this society, refusing to fulfill family duties is seen as ungratefulness. But put yourself in my shoes. The daughter they banned from attending a family celebration because she wasn't good enough to show off. The one who paid thousands of dollars without anyone ever asking, are you okay? I didn't choose family in the traditional sense. I chose myself. Think I was too cold? Or did I simply learn to love myself at just the right time? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes, your story can be the light someone else needs when they're caught between duty and freedom. And if you've ever felt alone in your own family, believe me, you're not. Nicole's story is a powerful reminder that no one is obligated to sacrifice themselves for a relationship that only carries the label, family, but lacks respect. When you learn to set boundaries, to choose self-love, and to stop letting others take advantage of your kindness, that's not selfishness. That's maturity. Nicole didn't seek revenge, only a dignified silence to affirm her worth. And sometimes, the firmest act is the very first step toward inner peace. What do you think of Nicole's decision? Was she too harsh, or did she simply protect herself after years of pain? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow this channel for more deep and meaningful stories about family.